Ali Cupper, the member for Mildura, welcome back on Flow.
Thanks so much, Ricky.
Look, it's good to have you back, and it's good to, I know it happened about a week or so ago, but good news for lentil growers, and a lot of which are in your electorate in the northwest of Victoria.
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of times, people think about the northwest and they think about wheat mainly, and we do have a lot of wheat, and they think about barley as well. But we produce so many different types of grains and pulses, and I know that at the Patchy Pub they have on the mantelpiece there, like Bryce, who was the publican until fairly recently, had a little row of all these little jars to show just the diversity of what is produced in the Mallee. And lentils being one of those. And India's removed its tariff on Australian lentil exports, which is great news. And another step in the right direction for our industry.
Yeah, it was somewhat unexpected as well, those tariffs. We thought they might run for a while, but good news, they've decided to drop them away.
Yeah, that's right. So, obviously, free trade can have its pros and its cons, but we're pretty parochial here, and so if it's good for our growers, then we're pretty happy, and we know that the importance of these sorts of markets is enhanced too with some of the trade barriers or challenges we're having with China. So being able to diversify our markets and to be able to land those sorts of deals with countries like India is incredibly important, because as we know, it's a big market. There's a lot of people in India, and so those sorts of things are really important steps.
Yeah, I understand they're the world's biggest consumer of lentils, but moving along, you've put some letters out to your, colleagues in parliaments around your federal and state areas, but also it seems on social media you're trying to attract people that might run as candidates on this Rategate platform you've been talking about.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, it's not so much a campaign sort of thing, really. It's just about MPs showing support, regional MPs showing support. One of the things that has been really clear through Rategate is that the problem with the rural and regional rates disparity, is that we don't necessarily have a unified front across the regions with our political representatives, because part of that is probably that there's a fair diversity of different colours and stripes. So we've got, across regional area for the state jurisdiction, but also in the Victorian regions for the federal jurisdiction. You've got Libs, you've got Nats, you've got Labor, you've got Independents. That's the and some shooters and fishers and hinges just as paid. There's a kind of a diversity, right? That not everyone necessarily gets together as a united front on this. We have to. We absolutely have to. And if we don't, we will never budge this issue. So I know that in my electorate, I know, having been a councillor for 6 years, this is a burning, seething issue for our communities, particularly farmers who have to pay so much in real terms. Some farmers, family farmers, are paying up to, or around $100,000 in rates per year. And properties of the same value in a municipality in Melbourne would be paying, a fraction of that. And it's just not fair. And so politically, to budge the feds and the state, we need to be a united front across party lines in the regions. And that's what the latest, the move is, to try and encourage those MPs from disparate places to come together.
Now, we've spoken, as have you, with Sophie Baldwin, who's running for the federal electorate of Mallee that sort of overlaps your seat in some respects. Will you support or encourage candidates that are willing to make a Rategate commitment?
Oh, look, absolutely, Ricky. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is all part of it. I mean, this is the long march. There are some elements to fixing rates which fit squarely with the state, and we're not letting the state off the hook. Ultimately, what I think we need, and what the VFF thinks we need, is an equalisation funding system. That's the only way. Well, certainly no one's given me a better idea, put it that way, of how we can start to bring down those regional rates, and to give some decent readjustment to regional people. But also there's some important stuff that the feds can do. And in fact, I would say easier stuff, that the feds could do, which is has compelling arguments for, and which, that they need a bit of pressure to do, and it's not just the incumbent coalition government, it's the Labor opposition too. At the moment, both of those sides are just saying, no, we're not going to make any changes, or we're certainly not going to commit to any changes ahead of the election. Well, that's not good enough. It's just not good enough. We need to increase the quantum of the financial assistance grants, because they've been declining as a proportion of GDP for decades, and we also need that 30% rule change, so that more of that big money can get to the LGAs that need it, rather than those big city LGAs that don't.
Now, you mentioned that phrase, long march. I just want to check in with you. We did ask the state government about the hospital issue. You've pushed for a $500 million hospital. You've said it's a high ask, but you're going to keep cracking away at it. Have you had any more developments or progress on attracting health workers to the Mildura and the broader Mildura electorate?
Yeah, so we know that one of the best things you can do to attract workers, well, number one is you can offer them good salary packages, and so that was why it was important for us to bring the hospital back into public management, because prior to that, our hospital staff were the only public hospital staff in the entire state that couldn't get access to salary packaging. But in addition to that, to attract the best and brightest to the most isolated part of the state, you need great facilities. So that's the idea behind, or one of the ideas behind, building a brand new state-of-the-art world-class facility here in Mildura for doctors and nurses. But the other part of that too is to make that, or to ensure that there is an integrated academic health precinct, so that you're future-proofing against staff shortages as we go forward, because you're attracting smart, medical students to come here to experience Mildura. Hopefully a few of them will stay, and we'll be able to, make sure that we're not left behind in terms of having that all-important medical workforce. So yeah, it's a long march. That's right. These things can take time, but we asked a question in question time in Parliament of the Health Minister, not last week but the week before, and certainly his response was encouraging.
Yeah, I noticed in that response actually he had a bit of a dig at the former government for its, handling of health services in the Mildura area, and indeed the Liberal National Coalition. They've made a few comments in the last week about bringing manufacturing home to regional Victoria, and the headline there would mention the Mildura and the Sunraysia, and talking about a return to face-to-face learning in classrooms, that they wouldn't keep kids out of classrooms during a pandemic again mentioning Mildura. Looks like a couple of first opening shots in your direction.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, and that might be how they're intended, but I sort of don't really receive those sorts of comments that way. I mean, look, a good idea is a good idea, and I'm quite happy to support any good ideas that the Libs and Nats have. I mean, I'm an independent, so if it came down to it, and if Parliament was hung, there's every chance I would work with the Libs and the Nats. I mean, the question for me would be who's offering the best deal for Mildura. If it's them, I support them. So yeah, so I'm not here to just sort of have an order. My impulse is not to automatically shoot down everything that the Libs and the Nats have to say. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea, and of course we want manufacturing. Yeah,
and it's a good to have some good policy for any electorate, and it's good that you're willing to support whatever comes forward. Ali, great to have a chat with you again, and look forward to seeing what comes up next for the people of the northwest of Victoria.
Awesome. Thanks, Ricky.